Very, very good.
Where does he post his recordings?
I'll ask him towards the end.
Type it, send his private message to him.
You can, okay. You can't send a private message.
Yes, you can.
And the text was the question?
Why would you put the?
Is it Sammy? What's the question?
Yeah, that's me. I was just asking, where do the recordings get posted?
Why?
Where do they get like posted out?
Oh, they are sent by Krista to to everyone, so that at least some people who don't who are not able to participate. There's a lot of high school people right now, so those that are not able to see it.
Nobody has their camera on.
So, yep. So we send it
I
out.
wanted to see that it's you and not me because it says it's me right now.
Okay, I'll change it then.
No, don't change it because I don't want to sit 10 over there.
Hi, Rado. How are you? This is Walter.
Yes,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Gomez, how are you?
Good. Thank you. I will juggle. I will be listening, but also will try to give the kids some food in the meantime. So
No worries. Yeah, no worries. Definitely appreciate you joining. Yeah, you are joining, standing in for Walter.
that is correct. Yes, that's the first one that's going to go through college and of the three kids. So it's a learning experience for me.
Yes, it's definitely a learning experience, and you keep learning, and Jeff has an experience in it. So I think he's going to share a lot of insightful information on this thing. So
Okay,
I'm looking forward to it myself. So
great. Thank you, Jeff, for your time. Very much appreciated.
Of course, glad to.
yeah, I think Jeff, as I said, a lot of people will be hopping on. There's practices. Some of them will be done and they'll just hop on, so the numbers will go up. And then there's several people who are going to miss it because of high school.
Got it.
High school
Got
games.
it.
So we're recording it and we share with the club. I'll start by introducing Jeff. Jeff, kid, played in the club way back when we were very small. The club has grown since, and he's taken a keen interest in, and he's had kids go through the college process, and he's very passionate about this space, and so he wanted to share some insights, and I know he does spend a lot of time in this space with his organization as well. So that's the introduction, and I'll let Jeff take it from there.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much, Rado, and I appreciate you and Rich and the club letting me come and share with y'all today. Rado, before I get going, I am going to need to share my screen, and right now
Sure.
it says that I'm on disable. So if you could work
Yes,
on giving me access.
Check it out. Does it work?
Yes, it does. Okay, good. So I'll be sharing in a second. That's perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Okay, so my name is Jeff Hulett, and I'm going to be sharing with you about the college experience today. So the way to think about our program today is it's going to be possibly a little bit different than than some of the other soccer programs you listen to. So the way I'm going to present to y'all today is I'm assuming that you have probably talked to to coaches and to those that can help you with the college recruiting process, some of the nuts and bolts of doing that. So I'm going to leave that to the real experts on that, but I'm going to talk to you about something a little bit different. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is, instead of going from today into the future in terms of how to get recruited to play in college, what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the future and we're going to come back to today. And that approach, what I'm really trying to do is help you understand how important it is to focus on objectives and to really focus on the future in terms of thinking through what you want that future to look like, and then coming back today to help you make that decision. So all along the way, I will be talking about soccer and I will be talking about the soccer experience, but it's more in terms of helping you really understand what it means to what your future will look like and how you back up today to make a really good decision. So that's going to be about half of what we're going to talk about today. The other half, when we get to the present, I'm also going to share with you an app. And part of my job and part of my role, I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Definitive Social. And we're a decision sciences company as an organization, as a nonprofit. But what we do is we provide tools to 17-year-olds or to people that could really use them to make really good decisions, especially the complicated decision like the college decision. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about in the second half of that. So anyway, so that should be, certainly an hour's worth of kind of discussion. We may get through it a little bit faster, and certainly, and Rado, I'm not sure how to best handle this, but if there are questions, you can either put them in the chat or maybe at the end we can certainly have some Q&A as well. If that
Probably
makes
the
sense.
Q&A, yeah, the Q&A probably works better.
Okay, that would be just fine. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so first part of what we're going to be talking about today, actually, I wanted to, probably the most important thing to share with you is, and can everybody see my screen okay, the PowerPoint screen? I hope, Rado, you can see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
everything looks good. Yep.
So the most important thing actually today is the resources. If you don't remember anything that I say today, remembering where to find what we talked about today is super important. So there's really two major resources, and I'm going to provide this presentation to Rado, and he can forward it to you after the fact so you can get all this. So the number one resource is the College Journey and Beyond. That's just basically our website. Let me click on that. And why this is important, this is basically a collection of articles all about the college process, but it's bigger than just the college process. It's also, we call it the college and beyond. So the way to look at this is a set of 16 articles. The first part, the foundational part, is really for parents with younger kids that may be in the soccer process or in the sports process. In particular, the education of a sports parent. That talks really about suggestions for developing the athlete's mindset. So that's really geared at the younger group. But then we get to the high school students, and honestly, for those that are the high school students that are watching today, this is the most important part. I'll be speaking to a lot of these, but if you need to go back at any point, there are 4 articles here that could be particularly helpful. Talking a little bit about college risk, we talk about our tools and our framework. We talk about how to use it in the context of a personal finance decision to make a decision about college. And then finally, we spend a lot of time on the community college as part of that decision, which we'll be talking about today as well. Then we jump right into the college students. This is all about when you do get to college, how to be successful. And these will give you a number of different resources about, and especially about when it comes time to be recruited out of college, when you're looking to get your job, a number of articles about how to go about doing that. And we will be talking about that some today. And then finally, career and beyond. This goes beyond after you get that first job. How to think about getting the first job. And also we go into things like negotiating salary, right? Like who doesn't want to make more money? So, we hit on topics such as that going beyond here. So the way to think about these 16 articles is really they are meant for you as a resource at the time you need them, right? So it's fine to go through and read them or scan them just to get a feel for what they're all about. But ultimately, it's all about just pulling them off the shelf when you need them to help you. So that is that number one resource. The number two resource here is our app. This app is called College Xoice. It's in both the Droid and the iPhone app stores. So there's 2 ways to get it. Way one is just go to your app store, and please, you can do that right now if you'd like to. Go to your app store and search on College Xoice. That's with an X, Xoice. It'll come right up, and I'll invite you to download it. The other way to do it is you can see there's a QR code here. I'll leave this up for a moment, but you can hold your iPhone up to your screen right now, or your smartphone up to your screen right now, and you can go ahead and activate the QR code, and you'll be able to, it'll take you right to our website that'll then direct you right to download the app from whether it be an iPhone or a Droid. So anyway, those are the two ways to get the College Xoice app. Now here's the thing, for Great Falls Reston, when you sign up for the app, there is a brief registration. You need for the free version of this that we're providing to the club, you just need to put in the registration code GFRS, okay? And what this app is this is our tool that helps you to make a college decision. It focuses on education about the college process in terms of what's a FAFSA, what's tuition, and kind of there's about 10 or 15 different education areas around the different things that you need to understand when you're going through the college process. What I'll tell you is it relates to soccer, but it's broader than just playing soccer in college. It's really about the general experience with soccer being part of your decision to go to college. But then we get into the whole idea of thinking through what's important to you about the college that you'll go to. Then it'll get into the actual college choices themselves. And the way this works, again, I mentioned to you that our company is a decision sciences company. So what we've done is behind the scenes, we have these algorithms that are basically doing the heavy lifting to score the information that you give to the app. So what ends up coming out of it is after you've put in the information about your preferences and the information about the schools you're interested in, it will ultimately help you to make a very good college decision. So it's meant to be something that you carry with you when you're going on college visits, whether you're talking with a college coach. It kind of tracks along with you so you can kind of keep up with the information in a super efficient way that ultimately leads to a good college decision. So anyway, so that's the two resources that I'll leave with you. And now in terms of Definitive Social, we've talked a little bit about what we're all about. We are a nonprofit and we are focused on helping people to make really good decisions. The college decision is just one of the things that we focus on. The important point here is that all decisions aren't necessarily financial, but almost all decisions do have a financial impact. And that's kind of what we're focused on, is helping folks with that. So now I promised you we were going to start with going into the future and working back to the present. And I do this for a very specific reason. And that is to help you really get in the mindset of thinking about good decision-making by thinking forward about what success is for you, right? So if you're making a college decision, it's not about what's the decision about the college I get into today, but it's more about thinking 4, 5, 6 years into the future. What does success look like for you? And then to help you inform how you make that decision today. Okay, so that's really the whole idea here. So we're going to focus on the future, meaning 4 to 5 years. We're going to take a little trip in our time machine here. We're going to go 4 to 5 years into the future, and we're going to talk about what success could look like for you. Now, success is a personal thing, right? And I get that. Everyone listening in right now is maybe thinking to themselves, well, success could be one kind of career or another kind of career. It could be going to community college. It could be just playing soccer. There are a lot of different things. But since we're here to talk about college, I'm going to make an assumption here that success is getting a good degree and a good major and getting a good job after you graduate. That is the assumption that I'm making, that is what success looks like. Okay, if that's not quite right for you, I understand, but I wish you would, I'll ask you to bear with me and use that as a forward-looking success measure, so we can use that to now back up from the future. So when we look at what does that look like? We're going to be talking, first of all, about what do recruiters look at when they are recruiting people when they're in their third or fourth year of college, right? So now I am thinking well into the future now, but I invite you to come along with me because that view is what's going to be really helpful. So first of all, if you were in your senior year and you were trying to get recruited, it is very likely that you had been going through several different job opportunities along the way. And you may have heard of these things before, but almost all companies have internships and externships before they make a full-time offer of a hire, okay? Now, this is coming from my experience in terms of hiring kids out of college. And that is very, very standard for most large companies, okay? So what you see on our college track here is the whole notion of an externship, an internship, and then getting interviewed for full-time. And what this is really talking about is every summer from your sophomore year to your senior year, you're going to have an opportunity to step into the quote unquote real world as a way to get to know it, okay? Now, what I'll tell you is recruiters, as much as they want to be helpful for you to understand what the future world could look like, they have another purpose in mind too, right? They're trying to attract you and they're trying to find the future stars, right? Really bright kids that they'll want them to come to work for them. So don't think that this is something that they're just doing out of the goodness of their heart. They are in a real way, but also they do expect ultimately to be able to hire some really good talent. So that is part of why they do this. Okay, so when you think about soccer in college, that's going to be a really important part of what you do, but I would also encourage you for your summers to seriously consider internships, externships on your way to getting to that fourth year. Okay, now here's the whole thing, and it's really important to talk about now, is what are recruiters, when they're recruiting, what are they looking for, right? Again, when you think about what success looks like in the future, what could it be that a recruiter would want to see? So at the underneath the graphic, I have the three key things that recruiters are looking for. They're called the 3 C's. Okay, so they're looking for, the first C is intellectual competence. Okay, the second one is conscientiousness, and the third one is collaborativeness. Now, it's easy to put them into 3 C's. I use these big words, but really what this is all talking about, the first one, intellectual competence, that's just around, the word smart comes to mind, but that's not really it. It's more about being open to learning, being curious, and being teachable. Okay, that's intellectual competence. When you get into conscientiousness, your soccer coaches talk about conscientiousness all the time. And another word for that is work rate, right? They want to know that you're willing to work your butts off and work very hard. And so that's another thing that they're looking for is work rate. And then finally, collaborativeness. That's a team player. Almost everything in the business world is done in teams. Rarely do you do have individual contributors that do individual things, but everybody comes together. Everybody is moving towards similar goals. Teamwork in the business world is incredibly important. So those are the 3 things, the 3 C's that they're looking for. Now, the thing I'll say about employers, I don't want to say that they are lazy, but they do sometimes look for what I call the easy button. So in other words, if they're looking for the 3 C's, how do you think they find it? And the answer is actually very simple. It's 3 words: grade, point, average. They are going to start with your GPA. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, how could competence, conscientiousness, and collaborativeness be my GPA? Well, here's the thing. What they know is to get a good GPA, you must be pretty smart to get a good GPA. So that checks the competence box, right? Conscientiousness, you know, you really do have to work hard to get a good GPA. I know everybody has that friend that seems like they don't really work and they get really good grades, but for the rest of us, we have to work to get good grades, okay? And that's just the, you know, the way it kind of is, and that's the way they view GPA too. So they will think, they believe that if you got a really good GPA, that you are also a very hard worker. And then finally, collaborativeness. In colleges now, tons of your classes will have group work, right? Almost all universities now require you to do tons of group work together, okay? So that's another part of your GPA, right? Because to get a good grade, you have to work well in teams. So there you have it. They're going to look at GPA, and the other thing they're going to look at is major. So again, thinking about what I sort of led off with, if we're looking into the future, right? And the future is a good job, graduating from a good school, getting that good job, that first job, what it really means is the GPA, okay? Now, I want to give you another little secret here too about how companies recruit. Now, there's a belief in the United States, a firm, culturally held belief that elite schools, like think of the Ivy League, you know, think of Stanford, you know, think of schools like that, the big name schools that you've heard of before, the elite schools, that if you go to those, that you're going to punch your ticket, okay? Now, here's the thing, and I've worked for several large firms, including IBM and KPMG, which is a big accounting firm. Here's how I'll tell you how we recruit. We start with the GPA and major, okay? And here's the thing, if you went to Harvard and you got a 2.5, and you went to Virginia Tech, let's say, and got a 3.5, we would hire 3.5 kids from Virginia Tech all day long. We would never even see a kid with a 2.5 from Harvard. They didn't meet our minimum requirements, okay? So think about that. It's just as important to go to a school where you can get a good GPA as any name recognition that you're gonna get, in my opinion and in my experience, okay? Again, focus on where you can go and get that good GPA and get a major that's marketable too. So in some of our materials, we have a couple of links to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which it's a link that basically has all kind of the hot fields right now, right? And we also have this in our app. So here's my whole thing, you know, pick a major that aligns with an area that's hiring right now, right? So you can get a great GPA in a major that nobody's hiring for, and you'll just be really good at, I guess, not getting a job. But if you get a major with get a good GPA, and you're in a major that's you know, hiring and is aggressively growing, your likelihood of getting that job just increases a lot. So think about that. Would be my only other encouragement. Now, there's a little bit of what I want to just say about how these companies recruit too, is, you know, there is a lot of focus on what we call compliance, okay? And what that means is that in today's world, being really rigorous about objective criteria is important, okay? So what that means is, from a racial equality standpoint, companies have to be very careful about not showing unfair favoritism, especially when it comes to protected classes, which that's a legally defined term that talks about race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. So the reason why GPA and major are so important is because they're objective measures. They are easy to defend. Okay, so if one person had a higher GPA than somebody else, that's why I hired them, right? But if it flips and you're seen as possibly showing favoritism, you just have to have a very good reason to do that. So employers like to stay away from that. Again, my point is, you know, the GPA is really important. Employers, especially big company employers, really do focus on that quite a bit. So anyway, so we started going into the future, talking about GPA. We've talked about the 3 C's and some of the key things that you should consider focusing on and thinking about, and why the GPA is so important to demonstrate those 3 C's. We haven't talked about soccer so much so far. And so when you look at these 3 C's, 2 of those C's, collaborativeness and conscientiousness or work rate, is all about soccer, right? So the good news is employers love to hire athletes. Athletes have something special. They are good at working in teams. They are good about setting goals. They are good about working through pain, right? They work their butts off, right? So employers love that. But again, if you have all that, but you don't have the GPA to go with it, think of your athlete status as a tiebreaker. But if you can't get into the pool to break a tie because you don't have the GPA, that's an issue, right? So think about that when you're thinking about the college that you want to go to as an athlete. Now, the good news is, what I will say is, most colleges, both D3 and D1, do have programs that will help athletes to stay on track with their studies, because they understand you're going to spend a ton of time on a bus. I mean, that's just the way it works. You will get to fly around a little bit, but the truth is, even soccer, whether you're in D1 or D3, is still a non-revenue sport, and they try to basically book their games as close as possible so they don't have to fly. So you'll end up spending 3, 4, 5, 6+ hours driving in a bus to games all the time. That's just the way it works. So why I
Fun
bring
bus
that,
trips, though.
What's that?
Fun bus trips.
Very fun bus trips, for sure. But the cool thing about it is that the kids that are successful, right, the ones that really get those good GPAs, guess what they're doing on those buses? They got on their headphones and they're studying, right? I mean, that's what they're doing. And on the way there, it's great. On the way back, you're in a bus. If you played, you're probably pretty sore. You probably don't feel like studying, but that's what they do, and that is the successful part of going and playing soccer in college, is using that time to really stay focused on your grades. So anyway, so that's kind of a future view. We've worked back to the present some. But one of the things that we haven't really talked as much about yet is sort of that when you first get into college. And we're going to now talk a little bit about what I call starting strong. Okay, so now we're coming back in time. We were 3 to 4 to 5 years in the future. Now we're backing up. Now we're just like a year or so into the future. You've graduated from high school. You've just started in going to college. It's a great time. It's honestly, it's a nervous time, right? Because everything's new. You're moving away from home probably, and you're getting to know the new team. Very likely, if soccer is a fall sport, so you probably came at the end of July or the beginning of August. You spent a couple of weeks with the team doing a pretty intensive preseason training, and now school started, right? So you're sort of getting into the flow of college. And what I want to say is, whether you are an athlete or not an athlete, here's just some of the key things that we focus on with folks that are starting out as freshmen. Now, what I'll tell you, of all the things that are on here that I've emphasized on is that second one, putting in the work to get the good grades. Here's the thing, it's all about getting off to a good start and getting those habits down, right? And when everything's new, it's really easy to get distracted, I just want to say. So really making a point to when that first week comes up, they call it syllabus week, really getting into those classes and starting off strong and stick with it. And there's this thing that's called the tyranny of the GPA, right? And you guys that have been in high school probably understand this. And the tyranny of the GPA is this: it's a whole lot easier to keep the grade point average you want than to bring up the GPA that you don't want, right? So when you're a freshman, you know, you have a clean slate. You have a 4.0 before you get your first grade. It's only downhill from there, right? So your first, 4.0, it's all about trying to really focus on those classes just so you try to keep the GPA you want. It's just so much easier to do. And you start it as a freshman, right? And if you create that habit, trust me, it's easy once you create the habit. But the key is, that first week, that first month, that first semester, that's when that habit happens. So it's just a really super important time. And I encourage you to take that first time, and make it, it'll be fun. You'll be with your new team. That'll be awesome. But you'll also need to spend some more time studying too. And of course, that's why you're going to college. Okay. So that is kind of our focus here, from going from, the future, coming back to the present. And before we kind of jump into the app, what I wanted to talk a little bit about is the whole notion of community college. Now, what I'll say in the United States, we have this strange culture around college, I think, in some ways. And what I mean by that is I feel like we ask the wrong question, right? Sometimes we ask the question, is college for me? Am I college material, right? Like a yes or no question. And that is absolutely the wrong question. Everybody who is watching this right now, I can almost guarantee that is not the right question. The right question is, yet, now or not yet. Okay, and I want to say that again. The right question about college is now or not yet. 17 years old is a completely random point in time. Science has proven it. There is nothing magic about 17 to say that you're ready for college. But everybody can go to college. I'm completely convinced of that. Now, one of the most important things that you have to ask yourself around the question of now or not yet usually has to do with study skills. Okay. And so from our experience, kids that it is now, all that really means is they probably got pretty good grades in high school and they've got good study skills. It doesn't mean they're any smarter than anybody else, honestly. People get that confused all the time. We all have the same number of neurons in our head. Honestly, we all have 80 billion neurons in our head. That's neuroscience. You were born with that. We all have the same capacity. Okay. It's just the timing is all that matters. So if you've created those study habits in high school, you're likely to carry those into college and you should be successful. If you didn't get the grades that you thought you really wanted in high school, you may want to think about that a little bit more. And it's more around a question of, do you have the study skills to get that good GPA out of the college that you want to go to? Nobody can really answer that. That is a hard question to answer, but I'd encourage you to be honest with yourself about it. Think about it, talk to your folks about it, and really go through that. Now, so this leads into community college. Community college kind of gets a bad rap, and I have no idea why. Community college is awesome, and I'm sort of wonder sometimes why people think that it's not so great. Now, there's two kinds of people that go to community college. One kind is they're looking for an associate's degree, so that's sort of a focus for them. Another kind of that's going to community colleges, maybe they didn't get the grades they wanted in high school, and they want to prove to themselves that they have the study habits, right? So they go to community college, they get the good grades, those grades transfer to a 4-year school, all good, right? And so, but they've proven to themselves that they have the study skills, which is amazing. But then the other, this actually relatively new group, what they've figured out is because community college grades classes will transfer, and you are guaranteed, if you go to a Virginia community college, you are guaranteed enrollment at a four-year institution. Okay, so think about what that means from a cost standpoint. If you're taking Psych 101 at Nova and you're taking Psych 101 at the University of Virginia, what's the difference? The class content is almost identical. The difference is about 90% more expensive at UVA than at Nova. So what's increasingly happening is super savvy kids are going to community college because they're saving a ton of money. And as an employer, what I will tell you is not only do we not care if you end up going to UVA or JMU or Tech or wherever after Nova, we don't care. All that matters is that you got the 4 degree. And in fact, I will say that we like the community college transfer to a 4-year college kid even more because we know they're resilient, right? We know they had to work hard. We know that they took the path less taken, and that path was a little bit harder, right? So we know they're tough. And so trust me, the community college to a 4-year college is an awesome route. Employers love it. It'll save you a bunch of money. I have no idea why it gets a bad route. It shouldn't. So I'll leave it there. Okay, so that's community college. But so we're kind of continuing to going back in time. The one last thing that I want to talk about is the difference between D1 and D3 soccer. Now, I have 4 kids. They're they go from 27 to 20. 2 of my kids played soccer in college. One played club at James Madison. And the other one played for Christopher Newport on their men's soccer team. Okay, and so my perspective on D3 versus D1 is this. There's a belief that the D1 soccer is just better than D3. And I'll say that's bullocks. It's just not true. CNU top 20 US D3 team regularly beat D1 teams. They would play them in preseason. They would play them in their spring semester. They beat William and Mary. William and Mary's right down the street from CNU, would beat them. Now, what I will say is, if you took the top 20 US D1 teams and had them play the top 20 D3 teams, probably on average, the D1 teams would win. But beyond the top 20 D1 teams, the D3 teams would absolutely give them a run for their money and would probably beat them most of the time. It just, there's a mythology around the difference between D3 and D1 talent, and it's just, I don't see it. And so I just wanted to share that with you. But there's one really important thing about D3 that's different from D1 is D3, the soccer season is just like the D1 season, super intense. You got 2 games a week, you're traveling all over the place. You go through your regular season in about a little over 2 months, from the end of August to the end of October. And then November is basically when you have your conference tournament and you start your NCAAs. And if you make it all the way to the end of the NCAAs, you're playing in the Final Fours at the beginning of December. It is the same for D1 as D3. The difference is spring. In the spring, D3 is half speed. In the spring, you can go to Europe. You can hang out with your friends. You can have like a regular, real college life. Whereas D1 is the same grind. Okay, so that's a really important difference between D3 and D1 is the spring season. So that's part of it. And really the thing that we found that we really loved about D3, believe it or not, is that they didn't have scholarships. Now that may sound funny to you, like D1 has 10 scholarships per team, or 9.9 or some number like that. D3 has no sports scholarships. You can get academic scholarships, but there's no sports money. The difference is, the coaches are relatively professionalized, and they use those scholarships as a way to compete the players. For D3, the players are there because they love the game. So the power dynamic between the coaches and the players is completely different in D3 versus D1. I'll tell you, D3, it was like a family. It was, Daniel, my son, had an amazing experience. So anyway, the only thing I would encourage you, if you've sort of got the mindset of D1 or bust versus D3, I really would suggest that you focus on D3 and give it a whirl, give it a shot. You may find you like it. Okay. So anyway, let me go ahead and I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. We've gotten all the way back to the present now, and now we're going to talk about our app. Okay, now hopefully, at the very beginning, I encouraged you to download the app so we can talk about how it works. It'll be easier if you have it up, but it's okay. Just kind of listen in as I kind of step through it. And once we go through the process, and afterwards you can kind of go through and use the app, after the fact. And again, I'm going to give the presentation to Radha so he can send it to you guys. So you'll have the registration code and everything. So here's the way to think about our app. There are about 4,000 colleges in our country, in the United States. There's a ton of information resources out there. In Fairfax County, they use a system called Naviance. And Naviance is basically a data system that provides some filtering to help you narrow down your choices of colleges from 4,000 down to a handful, right? A handful of schools that you're considering, including for soccer, right? So that Naviance, those tools are really good at that. The problem is what's missing is once you get your handful of schools, you still need to make the decisions about, okay, of these 5 or so schools, how do I choose the one that's best for me? And that's where College Xoice comes in, okay? So I just wanted to put this up to help you understand where our app kind of fits in. I certainly, again, Fairfax County, assuming most of y'all go to Fairfax County Public Schools, use the Naviance system, it's great. But go ahead and also use College Xoice as a supplement to what you're getting via your high school. Okay, so the way it works, really, really simple. I'll walk through this. Is really it's focused on 3 things. It's easy, it's fun, and it builds confidence. Okay, at the end of the day, that's when we built this app, and those are the sort of the 3 things that we were very focused on. But let me kind of take you through a little bit about how it works. What you're going to see is we consider the college decision is very much as a journey. Okay, so this isn't something you sit down on a weekend and make a decision on. You typically start your junior year, and we recommend actually even starting your sophomore year to start learning about the process. So our app starts with learning, okay, and the way we have it set up is the learning part of the app was actually done by a bunch of college kids that we worked with from the University of Pittsburgh. We wrote scripts, and they basically went through and acted and created videos around each key part of the college process. So the nice thing is you have these videos that you can get some quick information about different parts of the process that you may want to learn about. Like, for example, if you want to learn about the free financial aid form or the FAFSA, if you want to learn about tuition, if you want to learn about scholarships, if you want to learn about the importance of distance from home, if you want to learn about careers. So there's these different little modules that help you understand all that, but it's all geared towards making the college decision, and it's all geared towards the 17-year-old from a learning standpoint. So you kind of go through that process, and then you start with the planning process. And the planning process is really around how do you think about what's important to you about college, okay? Now, our learning section did teach you about some of the things that are important to college, but ultimately, going through the process of thinking about, for example, size of school, big school or little school, right? That might be important to you. Distance from home may be important to you. We talk about that in the learning section, but when we get into planning, we really get down to how important is this to you, okay? And we'll talk about how that works in a little bit. But we also go through other things that are really super important too. So for example, if you are not a white Christian, okay, and I'm saying this because I am a white Christian, but you know, your community is going to be very important. So say, for example, if you're Jewish, if you're an African American, right? If you're Islamic, right? So these are all different communities. It may be really important to you that the university you go to has organizations and has folks that'll be there that you want to associate with, right? From those communities, or that may not matter to you, but the app helps you think through that, okay? And that's the important point. Or let's say from a neurodiversity standpoint, let's say you have ADHD or dyslexia, or you know, have some of these, you know, things that make learning, you know, alternative learning important, right? We focus on that in the app as well. So it really is meant to help, you know, sort of really sort out those things that are important to you. And then we go through the search process, which is really focused on those schools that we had talked about earlier, those handful of schools, and applying that criteria to those schools. And then finally, what you end up with is basically a nice, you know, sort of reports that help you understand, you know, of the schools that you considered, how do they compare? What do the costs look like? And it ultimately helps you really talk about with your folks and with people that'll be involved with you to help you make the decision, what's the right decision for you. So anyway, so think of it almost like a concierge. So like if you go to a high school college fair, or if you go do an on-campus tour, you take the app with you and you're interacting with the app as you're going through the process, okay? And that's what's really great about, because the app remembers everything, and it has these algorithms behind the scene that are working to basically take your preferences and to organize them for you to help you make that decision. But the cool thing is you don't have to remember, like, because here's what's happened. You do these on-campus tours, I'll tell you, one tour starts to look like the next tour. And when you're in the tour, like it sort of makes sense to you, and it really matters to you. But when you step away from the tour, you'll start thinking about, oh yeah, was that JMU, or was that Tech, was that Maryland, was that, you know, Howard, was, you know, what, you start to lose track of it. But the app doesn't, right? As long as you're interacting with the app, it's going to really kind of keep track of all that good stuff for you to help you make that decision. The other final nice thing about this is the sharing part of this. So the way we think about the app is that it's really important for the high schooler to own the college decision, right? To have agency, to feel bought in, like it's ultimately something that's important for them to do. But we all know that, you know, 17-year-old's going to need help from their folks or from their caregivers. So what the app also allows you to do is to invite your parents or caregivers into the decision process. And it will allow the high schooler and the parents to compare how they think about what's important about a particular college or about different criteria, right? And so has a really nice way to be able to go back and forth and compare that stuff. So, you know, when you think about the kind of the last thing I'll leave you with in terms of the, you know, how to think about playing soccer in college, you know, we've talked a lot about what the future looks like, right? 5 years from now. And unless you are in the extreme minority, the last organized soccer you will play will be in college, okay? When you graduate, you'll very likely be the last time you play. A couple of you may play professional ball, but very likely you won't. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't hope for it. If that's a dream of yours, please do pursue it. But my only perspective on that is sort of hope for the best, plan for the worst. And if getting a great, you know, getting a great job out of college is the worst, you're doing okay then. So my perspective there is, you know, just, you know, kind of keep that in mind as you think about playing soccer in college. It's a special time. You're going to build great friends. You know, your teammates they're like bunker mates, right? These are people that you go to war with. They will absolutely be friends that you keep up with for the rest of your life. They'll be part of your professional network. You know, it's an incredibly special time. I can tell you from my experience with my kids and with others that it was absolutely fabulous. I will say, if you end up, you know, figuring out that, well, maybe playing club makes a little more sense, or playing some other way in college, that's perfectly okay too. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. So anyway, that is pretty much what I had for today to offer. So I appreciate very much your time, and you know, if there are any questions, I'd be glad to chat.
Hi, Jeff. This is Walter. First of all, thank you. It's been very well articulated. I will make my son listen to it. Thanks. One of my questions, in terms of the mayor, right? You talked about the mayors. How do you suggest in terms of, or recommend in terms of selecting the mayor? So how can I mean, it's something that you will I mean, I don't know.
So that's a really interesting question. So, and I'll share with you my perspective on it. To me, what people seem to focus on generally is what they think they're going to like, right? So they want to choose a major that they feel good about, and that they feel like they're going to enjoy and like, and I think that's a great idea. But there's one thing that we know, is that what we like is something that we get positive feedback on, right? Something that where people say, hey, good job, or, you know, there's somebody that you go to because that you've created some competence in an area. So with that said, honestly, the way I generally focus on it is I look at the majors that lead to growing jobs. So in the app, we actually have a link to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, basically, which is the US government's, basically they track hot jobs in the United States, and they will list out kind of what those jobs are and what the majors are that get attracted to them, okay, that typically get recruited for that. So as much as I think we get focused on liking what we do, I think if we get a major that leads to a good job, we will get that positive feedback to ultimately like it. So that's kind of my perspective on it. And again, but that information that's in my articles, that's on the app, and yeah, you can pull that out. And I'd ask, consider your son to take a look at it.
Jeff, I guess to follow up on what Walter said, and also your answer, when you're saying about growth, majors or careers, right? It's I think what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, but not necessarily to look at what is hot right now, but if you're going to be going to college, that's 4 years, right?
Right.
You have to do that research on what's going to be hot 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? And the only reason why I bring that up is, graduating from when I was graduating from college, high school, I remember the hottest thing was MIS.
Right.
And I remember they were hiring people out of like sophomores, and they were giving offers to juniors. That was before, around the .com eras, and
Right.
giving juniors. And by the time a bunch of my buddies did that, luckily I minored in decision science, and growth strategies. But by the time we graduated, those jobs it was saturated, and they weren't as hot anymore, right? And I think it taught me one lesson, and I was talking about it. So I think that's what you're trying to allude to, right? Just because something is hot now, you have to kind of fast and look at the future, right? Look beyond the cloud, I guess. Right now, the cloud is a thing. It may be such a thing as beyond the cloud. When you're done, what is okay? So I just wanted to sort of clarify for people too.
Yeah. So you're right. It takes some foresight, for sure. Like if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics site, half the hot jobs are in medical.
Right.
And so if you look at the demand for nurses, if you look at the demographics of the United States, where we're aging, got white hair like me, I'm only getting older. So it takes that kind of foresight to say, okay, yeah, medical will probably still be a thing in 10 years from now. Or to your point about data science and decision science, my funny story was I got into data science and actual behavioral economics back in the 90s. And that was relatively new then, but it didn't take a genius to kind of see where this was all going, even back then. So anyway, maybe I got lucky, I don't know, but it was but it was more actively looking at sort of and trying to project a little bit into the future. So I think you're right on, Rado.
Obviously, depends on the industry, right? Some industries, it doesn't really matter the medical
Right.
field, but maybe with tech, sometimes you have to see what's the trend, right? With technology, right?
Yep. Now there's another important thing too, is adaptability. So you go to college and you get a degree, and what I'll tell you, I'm 56 years old. Okay, I'll put that out there. So I've been around, working for over 30 years. I've been in banking, I've been in decision science, I've been in data science, I've been in behavioral economics, all related. But the truth is, I've also adapted. I have advanced degrees and I've gotten more education as I've gone on. So I think the other important thing is, don't think of the four-year degree as the end. And I don't know if this is going to shock people. It's really just the beginning of your learning. A four-year degree teaches you how to think. Once you get out into the real world, you start actually doing that stuff, and you have to start building skills to adapt. So, that's been my observation, at least, is you have to continue to grow. Continuing education is absolutely a real thing. And hey, Rado, we also had a question in the group chat from Ray, and he's here with his brother, and I wanted to know if the app is just for soccer or regular college searching uses as well. And it's absolutely for regular uses as well. And in fact, it's built around regular uses, with soccer is really just an overlay to that. And that's an important point, which is making your college decision with soccer is just being one piece of the criteria, right? In other words, make sure when you go to college that if you choose a college for soccer, that if for some reason that whole soccer thing didn't work out, that you'd want to be there, right? So anyway, and that's absolutely the way the way that the app works. So thank you, Sammy and Rayan, for asking that. And by the way, if you do use the app, feel free to contact me with any feedback. We're constantly growing and changing it, and we love it that you guys will have a chance to use it.
Any other questions? Well, I have one for you, Jeff. Is it okay that I don't know what I want to major in when, going into college? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's okay. You can always start out as undecided, undeclared. There's absolutely no problem with that. You're just going to want to choose something, usually by the end of your sophomore year is when you kind of get tracked into something. So by then you kind of do have to make up your mind. And again, consider, if you don't, to some degree, when I made my choice, so my degrees are in finance, mathematics, and economics. To some degrees, and how I chose those, I always figured it would be good for me to be able to balance my checkbook. So knowing something about finance and math and economics would be helpful. Right. So, I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is, you choose something at some point, take a look at what's hot, where you think the direction they're going. And if you really can't quite choose, just choose it based on what'll help you get a good job.
Last one, what are your thoughts about gap years?
I think gap years are great. You kind of what we talked about before, now or not yet is the right question. So if there's any doubt as to now, waiting a year and maybe working or doing something that helps you really focus in on what you want, I think is a great idea. And it kind of goes back to the question you asked before. What if you don't know what you want to do? Well, fine to go to college as undeclared, fine to take a gap year too, right? There is absolutely nothing that makes 17 years old the magic time for college, other than your parents may want you out of your house. But other than that, do it. Again, my advice is making sure that you're ready to have the study skills, the study habits to get the GPA. Because the last thing you want is, college is expensive. Now, we haven't really talked about the money side of this yet, but in the United States, college is crazy expensive. Other countries in the world, education is mainly socialized, which means the government pays for it. Here, not so much, right? So, expense is a big deal. Of course, you have to pay for your tuition, but you also have room and board and books and all that stuff. So, and regardless of whether you get loans or your parents are paying for it, either way, somebody's paying for it. Okay. So being respectful of that and making sure that you see college as an investment. You don't see it as a party. You're investing in your future. And, that's being respectful about how expensive college is.
Okay, thank you. I was going to end it, and then you brought up something. What about Europe?
Going
Someone
to
decide to go abroad for college? I don't know if you have any experience with that question or not. If not, that's fine. But
well, I mean, the only experience I have is kids going to Europe to play soccer, and going to Europe on basically as part of their U.S. college,
okay.
Which are two, very, very possible as well. Certainly, if you're going to a U.S. college and you want to spend a semester or two abroad, that's great. Again, if you're playing D1 soccer, that's going to be harder. If you're playing D3 soccer, you can do that during a spring semester. But certainly there are opportunities too to go to Europe and even sometimes play soccer as well.
Any more questions? If not, I know we've gone over the hour. So
Is it all right if you can send my mom the recording?
yes, we will send the recording out.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
If there's no other questions, Jeff, thank you so much. Obviously, I'll follow up with you, but unless you have anything else to add, definitely appreciate your time tonight, to offer your insights to, a lot of us. Even those of us that have kind of already gone through the process, we still learn a thing or two. So, again, thank you so much on behalf of the club.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And thank you all for your attention. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks.
Yep.